We are live back with another edition of your Wildest Fantasy Football Show, a Tuesday edition. Hope you all liked our first week of this new format. In the second week, starting to get a little bit more comfortable. Tody, you're starting to just being in your new house. You must be getting a little bit more comfortable with just like the location, the times, just everything.
Right. It's really nice here. Weather's great. Always shiny. I mean, obviously you can tell just because the sun looks like it's in the same spot every time. So, really great here. More time for just activities, jumping,
Plenty
running,
of space for it as well.
plenty of space.
And with jumping being one of those activities, those what are those, like 14-foot ceilings? They gotta be
Yeah. I
quite the
mean,
help.
yeah. It's there's no restriction now, really.
You can
Whereas,
jump whenever you want, however you want.
exactly. Like I can get the trampoline out. Trampolines aren't just for sleeping under. You can actually bounce on a trampoline.
Tody once notoriously slept under a trampoline, or else, I'm gonna be honest, that might not have made sense without that kind of backstory there.
Maybe it might have.
I don't know how many trampoline sleepers are out there,
Mhm. But hey,
but
I'm
just
one of
know
them.
you're not alone.
Right. I'm here. You know, they're good to jump on, good to sleep under. Two for
But
one
not
special.
good to sleep under while somebody's jumping on it. I think that's
Yeah,
like,
that does lead
we
to some
have to say
nightmares.
that
Yeah, it's not the best.
just for physical safety reasons.
Right.
Anyway, we are here. We kind of have a loaded episode because it is playoff time in the majority of leagues. If you go to week 18, that's one, just not a good idea, and would recommend changing that next year if you could, because a lot of guys sit in the
Right.
last week of the season, maybe resting guys up, maybe don't have any playoff seeding to really play for. Probably good to end it at week 17. A lot of leagues do, and that's why a lot of leagues are starting their playoff run this week.
Right.
14, 15, or 15, 16,
There is.
17.
Correct. 3 weeks.
I suppose if you do the 3-week playoff, but then there's also some that are going to do 15, 16, 17, 18. So, regardless of what you do, this is our first episode talking purely playoffs. We have playoff tips. We have waivers as always. And then we have to talk about our circle of trust, because circle of trust is one of the most toughest things to earn in life, I would say.
That is
Money,
true.
trust.
Money's hard.
And we're not earning money, so we have to talk about trust.
Exactly.
First thing first, do you want to start with the tips or the waivers? I think tips would probably be the smartest thing to start off with, as this being our big playoff episode.
Yeah. Let's go with tips. Tips and tricks to secure the bag for the playoff season.
So I can start off here, and I don't think it's something that maybe is purely playoff based, but something that certainly becomes more important as the playoffs come into play here. And that's going to be handcuffs. I think handcuffs this time of year, we're already seeing some injuries as far as the Zeke situation goes. Dalvin just came back from injury, but he is certainly not, albeit after having a massive performance, we know that he has quite the injury history. A lot of these top guys have injury concerns. Austin Eckler, there's some concerns with him. So there's a lot of situations where having a handcuff for these guys could be very vital to your success. If one of those guys goes down, having an Alexander Madison, who I think is a little bit more likely to be out there in 10-team leagues
Mm-hmm.
than 12-team leagues,
Right.
having some of these backups, guy that I will talk about today, and JD Mckissick, as far as waiver goes, some of these guys that you might think I can't get any production out of them, but if they're not going to be starting for you, I would rather have a guy who is maybe not giving me decent production right now, but in case of an injury to one of my starters,
Mhm.
can give you replacement level production.
Yeah, I'm with you. Handcuffs are super important for the playoffs. I mean, they're important all year. We kind of talked about it, but especially with playoff time, now is like the time that you kind of reap the benefits of having your handcuffs kind of all year. Um, if you had Madison on your bench all year, this year he got a lot more use than he has in years past. But if Dalvin goes down, you just see Madison putting up 20-point weeks. So very helpful to have.
Great. Do you have a playoff tip for the people?
I kind of do. I guess this is like something you should always do, but always watch the waiver wire. Um, in one of my leagues that I am in, someone, not going to say who, it was late Saturday night. Someone accidentally dropped. No, sorry, it's Tuesday. Someone accidentally dropped a man by Darren Waller a few weeks back before injury. They just accidentally dropped him. They went to move him out of rotation and dropped him instead. So keep an eye on the waiver wire, and you can get lucky. Pick up someone like that. You never know. Some people are going to be frustrated because they lost out of the playoffs. Waiver wire could all of a sudden be flooded in your league with, 3 or 4 really good players. So let's keep an eye on that. See who people are dropping, and see if it's someone that your team needs, and see if you can snag them up to just really secure your bench and even your starting lineup. If someone's angry enough.
Yeah, I do think that is something, as you mentioned, to do all year. But I also think that that's something, especially to look at now, because a lot of leagues handle that differently. I would say in maybe most leagues, if someone at the bottom was to like drop some big name players, they would say that can't happen. But there's other leagues that let that fly. And if that is the case, and you can pick up somebody like a Darren Waller, sure. Yeah. I mean, if that's within the rules of your league, then you have to do it. So always keep an eye out for the waiver wire. I would say maybe or not a bigger tip, but like to jump off of this, stay on it throughout the week, because it's not necessarily just today and tomorrow that waivers matter.
Right.
It can be following that, who gets dropped for some of these names that we'll talk about later. And those names could potentially even be more valuable than the guys that we talk about today.
Right. And always know your team. I mean, if you have 3 stud running backs who have all had their bye weeks, which is more than likely just because it's week 15, you don't really need to be picking up another running back. But if someone drops like an AJ Green, or someone just, who is kind of not, someone who's other people are just going to consider risky for someone else, keep an eye on that.
My next tip is something I kind of talked about at the trade deadline, but I think kind of goes into the playoffs as well, as far as value to you versus general value. Early in the season, you're looking for guys with the most value. Even I would say if they're not the most value to you, because you can stack those guys together and package them in a trade. I talked about this early on. I think the majority of the regular season is just trying to get the most talent that you can on your roster,
Right.
so that you have the most assets that you can stack up and move for what you need.
Right.
Now, can't really do that. So if there's someone out there, I'm trying to think of, for instance, last week, I suppose. So last week I had, and this might not be the exact case for playoff team, but I already had a first round bye clinched and our points for clinched. Not to brag, but that is the facts of the situation. So I had Darren Waller and I had Foster Moreau. I say the wrong name every time. I apologize to both parties involved.
As you should.
including myself. Moment of silence.
1 moment.
Okay. I dropped Foster Moreau for the Chargers defense and just didn't start a tight end because I didn't need to. But it was the best for my team going forward, even if it meant losing last week, which
Did you
Cody did
lose?
beat me last week.
That's right. We're 1-1, baby.
Okay.
Woo!
That's true. I can't argue the facts.
We will be playing each other week 18, more than likely. And I'll beat you then too. So
We'll see. May the best man win.
I will. Thank you.
And I don't know if that's the exact situation that I'm trying to talk about here, but I think that shows the not necessarily putting what other people would think first as like your top need, but thinking out and like what's the best for my team. I would have rather had the Chargers defense because Chargers defense has a decent schedule in the playoffs.
Right.
And maybe you have a guy like Sterling Shepard on your bench, but you have stacked wide receivers and you need a running back. And Dontrell Hilliard's out there. And I don't know if Dontrell Hilliard is better than Sterling Shepard value-wise, but if it's for your team's sake that it's better, then do so. Because what does it really matter now if Sterling Shepard is a better player for someone else if he's not going to play for you at this point when you can't trade him? Doesn't matter. I would say focusing on the value to you versus your general value that you would think about when you can make trades is a very important thing at this point in time. But I do think you have to slightly consider the value to your opponents as well, which will be my last tip. But I'll pass it on to you for your second tip if you have another.
I mean, my second and final one is like this time of year, it's more okay to have those boom bust guys in your lineup if your team can support it. Whereas like during the year, you want the guys who are going to be consistently getting you 10 plus points, 15 plus points in your lineup. And now is the time of year where having like a Tyler Lockett or like heaven forbid a Mike Williams on your roster who have a chance to get you 3 points, but they also have a chance to go for 30. Now is the time that you want to like utilize those players, just because playoffs you're going to be playing the best team potentially. So it's always good to have a guy who's going to be a little. It's nice to have at least one or two guys who are a little bit more risky, but have a much higher upside, and still obviously have your safe floor guys in there to keep you at like a solid level, and then pick and choose which one of your boom bust guys you want to put out there.
I do agree with this point. I think the important line in it is if you can support it. If you have some of the safer guys around, I think then that's okay. You want to make sure that you have that base of safe guys to say, well, if this guy does bust, do I still have a chance this week? Can I win even with that? That's kind of what you're banking on at that point because you don't want to put all of your reliance into that.
Right.
But I do agree that boom bust guys can be key to leading you to a title. I do want to say, do you think Tyler Lockett is a boom bust guy at this point?
I mean, he's more. I mean, he's had 4 weeks of like consistent, double-digit performances, but he also has, if we go back to week 6, he has 3 weeks underneath 6 points, and then the rest of the game's above 10. So I mean, he's kind of boom bust there, whereas 6 points is not going to help you win your league, and it could cost you your week. But obviously, getting that 19, 27, or 26 with those monster games that he has is very helpful. So I kind of consider him there.
Yeah, I think he's gotten to the point where he's probably the most reliable pass catcher. Well, definitely the most reliable pass catcher in the offense as of now. And I would call him a pretty safe option at this point. I mean, just with how it's been for the last 4 weeks. I get that that's not all season, but since Russ has been back, he's definitely been the most consistent guy.
Right. DK's had his struggles as of late. DK is kind of struggling, but I think DK is going to turn it around potentially. I mean, they're playing the Rams, so they're going to have to throw. It's a good game for DK to come back. I mean,
Agreed. And he's still getting looks.
Yeah, I mean, he has
I'm not
8 looks.
too worried about DK, and maybe this is a little precursor. I would say DK is still in the circle of trust.
DK is definitely a guy I trust. I mean, he got 8 targets in 4 of the last 5, maybe even more than that if I go back farther. Yeah, 4 of the last 5. He's got 8 targets. I mean, he's too big, strong, and scary to not get the ball to, so give him the ball.
That being said, you do also not like a guy who you say is scary and Scary Terry. So
that is true.
My last tip is to keep your opponent's needs in mind, especially in the playoffs. I have an example, not from the playoffs. I do think that this is a thing that you can focus on during the regular season, but in the playoffs maybe becomes even more important. My opponent was streaming quarterbacks. I didn't really have a need on the waiver wire, so I picked up a quarterback on waivers to try to block him from getting the quarterback that I was worried that he would get. And he didn't get that guy. And he got another guy who I think scored less. I hope scored less. But that's the kind of thing that I think can be real like gamesmanship when it comes to the playoff time. And it's something that you got to look at. Like, what might my opponent go for on waivers? Do I want to, because it is a trade-off, do I want to like concede on what I need to try to block him from what he needs? And just thinking about a little bit of the defensive strategy when it comes to the playoffs and trying to limit how good your opponent can be, as well as how good your team can be on the other side of things.
Right. I mean, I think, you're probably going to end up playing that guy in the playoffs. So, maybe there will be some redemption on his side. Who knows? Only time will tell.
I feel like you're trying to jinx me, and I don't appreciate that. But
I did
I
tell
don't
you
know.
that.
I mean, my back's.
I did tell you me and you were going to play week 18. So, I mean,
I don't think that's one. I don't know if that's possible.
I'll keep score mentally. I'll keep score.
Fair enough. Week 18 is a weird week to choose. As we mentioned, a week where a lot of the good guys sit. Don't want to brag, but I did finish a little bit higher, and more of my guys might sit, I suppose.
I don't know about that.
We'll see.
Yeah, we're taking a look.
But if you win, that's probably what happens. Also, I didn't play tight end this week. Let's talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Actually, let's not talk about that because we have a lot to talk about in general. Week 15.
I looked. You would have lost if you started James O'Shaughnessy. So.
Who said I would have picked up James O'Shaughnessy? I would have.
Well, he's the guy. Well, he's the guy that you have been riding. So I felt like he'd be the only guy that you would have reasonably.
Well, you're the one that said I would have. I didn't
Right.
say that I wouldn't have, but I said,
right.
Who said I would have?
You.
No, you.
No, I heard you say it. It's okay.
I didn't say it. You said it very clearly.
I said it for you, speaking on your behalf.
But I don't let you speak on my behalf because you say things like that.
But I say the truth to the people.
I don't know about that.
If I tell people to pick up Tyler Conklin, I'm going to pick up Tyler Conklin. If you tell people to pick up James O'Shaughnessy, and then you're not going to play James O'Shaughnessy, I feel like that's.
I did play James O'Shaughnessy in another league.
Right.
But not
necessarily. Well, you should have. You should have dropped Darren Waller. James O'Shaughnessy.
Going on to waivers, I think a lot of people are kind of crapping on waivers this week. There are a lot of guys that I do think could be valuable, especially down the stretch, but not necessarily the high, like, surefire guys that I don't know ever happen that much, but there's certainly an attitude some weeks where it's like, these are the guys that are going to go off. And I don't think anybody necessarily has that high hopes on these guys.
Yeah, waivers isn't it's not as fruitful right now just because people have all the playoff depth on their rosters. But there's still some gems out here for sure.
Mm-hmm. Let's start with the quarterback pickups.
This is going to hurt me in a lot of ways. Had to write it down this week. There's not many quarterbacks out here. I'll name 4 quarterbacks who are underneath 50%. I'll just tell you how slim the field gets here. We have Tua, Jimmy G, Heineke, and Justin Fields. Those are the only 4 really. Tua is the only guy kind of ranked kind of high, but he's playing the Jets. I mean, everyone looks good against the Jets, literally every single person. Not many other people are rostered and under 50% of leagues who are worth starting. I'm going to go with Jimmy G and Heineke. Tua, Jimmy G, and then Heineke in that order. In terms of quarterbacks to start, Tua playing the Jets. Jets are pitiful. Sorry, second take extra. Tua is just going to have a field day out there. Jimmy G, averaging over 15 points a game. I mean, playoff time, if you're streaming quarterbacks, I don't know how you made the playoffs, but hey, 15 points is going to be better than getting you 7 or 6 or whatever. Heineke, he's going to have an MRI, so I'm not sure how viable he will be. But if he does play, he's playing Philly. Philly's kind of been struggling as of late, so that's why I like him. Well, yeah, quarterback's kind of slim this week.
Yeah, nobody at the streaming position that you're all obviously feeling great about, but that I think just comes with the territory of streaming quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I obviously like Justin Fields. He had 18 points last week and had 3 turnovers. Just kind of what the floor of that running ability does for you. And he's playing Minnesota, so good matchup there. That's not a shot you would agree with. You're on here saying that the defense is bad all the time. So
I said we're injured. I didn't say we're bad. I said we're injured. Actually, our defense is ranked kind of high this week.
Well, there you go.
I mean, I'm less. I mean, obviously, I'm not okay with Justin Fields, period. But especially against Minnesota's defense, the man can't throw, and we just really have to stop Dave Montgomery. So we're just going to run blitz. We're going to do the 6-man blitz that Miami ran against Baltimore, and we're just going to crush him. He's going to have a very pitiful day. Don't start Justin Fields.
I'm fine with it. I mean,
Minnesota knows
against
me.
the other options, I like him. Yep. I would say Jimmy G as well. Just Jimmy G's pretty safe to give you 15, 14, somewhere around there. So those are probably the 2 guys that I would go with.
Minnesota's defense actually has been pretty reliable.
Have they?
I mean, they're only letting up 30 points a game, Kondo. I mean.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I don't know why you would ever play Justin Fields against anybody against that Minnesota defense. Sit all your Bears, honestly.
I mean, you're comfortable with Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney in the playoffs right now? You comfortable with that? I mean, I'm okay with Dave Montgomery because he has.
Well, you did. Yeah, I was going to say you did leave out Dave Montgomery, who's probably the best. But
I said Dave Montgomery's the only guy I would feel comfortable rostering from the Bears a while ago, so that's kind of why I left.
I feel fine with Mooney. I mean, I don't think you feel great because it's the Bears, but I think you feel fine with him. He had a little bit of a dud last week. Still has 5? He had 5 catches in the previous 3. I get that he had 7.7 in the game against Arizona. I don't feel that worried about him. I'm fine if you have to put him out there as kind of where he was last week for me, which was low wide receiver 2, high flex.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with Darnell Mooney this week just because he's kind of a deeper option. I mean, if you look back against Baltimore, he went 5 for 16. Normally, if you go 5 for 16, you're not having a good week. Got 121 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he's the only guy that I would consider for the wide receiver. Allen Robinson hurts me to say it because I love Allen Robinson, but Darnell Mooney, interesting guy. But it's playoffs, so I'm a little bit more skeptical. That's why I'm not going with Justin Fields.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go with any of those guys, I would say. But if you are in that position, that is probably one of the ones that I would consider. On to running backs. I think there's one big one that a lot of people are going to talk about, and it's Rashad Penny, former first round pick from Seattle, finally kind of starred. He got a chance and ran with it. He's gotten a few chances and not ran with it, but this one he ran with it, and he ran with it a lot. What do you have? 16 carries
137 yards, 2
and
touchdowns.
16 carries, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 catch, 4 1-yard, 26.8 in full point PPR. Pete Carroll after the game saying he deserves a chance to be the guy. I mean, yeah, and he's my number one waiver pickup because he's a starting running back who they just said has a chance, deserves a chance to be the guy. So that's about as much as you could ask for a waiver pickup at this point.
Right.
Do I feel great about Rashad Penny? I actually did like him coming into the league. I didn't think he should be a first round pick, but I did like him coming into the league. And there's a lot of other question marks. Number one, I don't think he's been all that great in efficiency numbers since coming in. Now, he's been behind the Seattle offensive line the whole time, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that I have against Rashad Penny is that the Seattle offensive line played Houston, and they don't for the rest of the season. So that's always going to kind of detract from the big gaudy numbers.
Right.
But he's a starting running back who looks like he's going to get a good amount of touches in an offense where they kind of like to have somebody on the ground and they like to take the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands for some reason. So I think Rashad Penny is probably my number one waiver claim. But again, it depends, especially now, on your needs and what you need as a team. But he is probably the most value in general among the waiver guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a wide receiver who I like a little bit more. Rashad Penny is playing the Rams against good defenses. Granted, he wasn't the sole starter then. He went 2 for 8, 6 for 9, 7 for 7, 2 for 19, and 10 for 35. Just not
fantastic. The starter.
What?
He wasn't the starter at all.
Right. I said he wasn't the starter, but I mean, if you come in, you should still kind of be somewhat efficient when you run the football, when you're healthy and not the main guy getting beat up at play in, play out. It was Houston that he kind of had this giant game, but again, Houston's not a defense that really scares people. So I'm a little bit less encouraged by it just because they're playing the Rams this week. But if you're looking long term, they play Chicago and then Detroit. So I kind of like him in weeks to come, just not loving him this week as the must pick up guy. But again, if you can, if you're in the playoffs, you probably have a good enough team that you don't need him this week. But for weeks to come, Chicago and Detroit for potentially your last 2 playoff games, which are both bad teams, period. And he could have another Houston-esque game. So I like him later on, just don't like him this week.
That's very fair. I have to correct myself on the efficiency numbers because he's been fine efficiency-wise in his career, I suppose. He does have 2 games under 2 yards per carry this year, but he is averaging 5.1 yards per carry in his career. He's only played 33 games in 4 seasons. So that's probably been more of a problem than anything. But I mean, we'll see what he does with this chance. I just feel like as the first round pick, they've been trying to give him a chance for 4 years and nothing's happened substantially. But like you said, good matchups. That's kind of got to be a little bit of a draw. And I can't talk too badly because I still have him as my top waiver claim of the week in most cases. Who are some other running backs that we should be looking at?
I put down Ramondre Stevenson. They're playing Indiana. Indiana, very tough on the run, but so was a team some people might have heard of called the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills were ranked number 1 against the run, and Bill Belichick said, I'm going to throw it 3 times on these guys, run the rest, get the W. Some hard-nosed football. I could see it happening, Bill Belichick.
New England might not throw the ball for the rest of the year.
I hope they don't. I just hope it's Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris and Mac Jones just running the ball. Some good old-fashioned hard-knock football. Another guy, last guy, J.D. Mckissick. We kind of mentioned him a little bit earlier. J.D. Mckissick's playing Philly, a team that scares you on the ground. It was only concussion that kept him out. I mean, concussions are bad, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't
His was very bad.
His was very bad, but it looks like he's going to play this week. Makes it more like you feel better if it's a concussion than if it was like a broken rib or a broken leg or something like that.
Well, and he also missed 2 weeks. So,
hey,
he's missed 2 weeks, so it does look like he is setting up for a comeback. And he made my list as well. He was 5th on my short list. So, and that could kind of be jumbled around depending on, again, your needs specifically. Yeah, J.D. McKissick's probably the best handcuff out there in 53% of leagues. So, I had on my longer list of maybe deep ads, or in this case, if you are a Saquon owner, Devante Parker might be a good person to look at. Justin Jackson, I think in the Chargers case, if you're worried about that, might be somebody to look at. I thought you were going to mention someone we have talked about on the show, your love for him, not in a while, but an old friend of yours that has just been elevated to the Dolphins roster because of a lot of positive COVID tests there.
Oh, are you talking about my baby Duke Johnson?
I suppose. I did not use the phrasing baby, but
right.
Yes, if that's how we look at him.
I mean, yeah. Duke Johnson could be a speculative ad for sure. I just have all the faith in the world that Myles Gaskins will be healthy and able to play this week. So that's just kind of why I left him off. But yeah, you can go with Duke.
You have to be confident in that just for your own team's sake?
I mean, so yes and no. I mean, you were confident in Hillard, and I was confident in Foreman. And tail of the tape, I was correct. Not just because.
Well, I do want to talk about that.
Well, hold on. Not just because I was confident in Foreman, just for my own personal needs, but also just because I think I made the educated choice in getting him first and foremost. And I think I just had like a little inkling from the stars that said you need to get this guy over this guy, and that's just why. I mean,
well.
So I think that's why I'm with Gaskins, is just because the stars are kind of telling me, hey, he's going to get it. He's going to be okay. He's going to come in and play. It's a Sunday game against the Jets. I mean, fly, Eagles, fly, baby. Come on.
Let's talk about the Titans backfield. I didn't list Dontrell Hilliard on here, and I don't think it's because of Dante Foreman. I think it's because they use 3 guys. And, that's one of the things that I thought Dante Foreman, just based off of the production, was the lead guy back there. But he did score a touchdown. That helped his numbers. I also want to say we were both very, very close on the two.
It was very close. It was very close. I thought Hillard would have a bigger role than he did. I was just kind of leaning towards Foreman. And I didn't think Nichols was going to out-snap or out-carry Hillard for sure.
So I do want to talk about that. I first wanted to say, just as a clarification, I think I had Hilliard 1 spot ahead of Foreman. We both said that it was close, but McNichols actually led the team in snaps. It was very close among the 3. So it was McNichols with 27 snaps, Hilliard with 24, Foreman with 23. So Foreman actually had the least amount of snaps, most amount of touches. So that's really what matters in the end.
Exactly.
I
They put him out there when they wanted to get the ball into his hands,
don't
and they just
know.
let the other guys out there just get bruised up, banged up, smashed around. Okay, is what it is.
I don't know who's going to be the lead guy here. Like, I mean, Foreman played, I would say, the best in this one, but I'm not like super excited about it, about them, or as super excited about them as I was the week before when it was only 2 guys.
Right. I mean, Nichols ran for 2 yards a carry. Hillard went 6 rushes, 13 yards, which is like 2.1 yards a carry, and Foreman went 13 for 47 with a touchdown. So he was the more dominant back. So I think they're going to kind of lean with him a little bit. But I think all three of them apparently are going to have a role. Not sure if the split could still be the same, but they still might just give it to Foreman more.
Yeah, we might talk. I will say we will talk more about him in the last Circle of Trust segment. But
Amen.
we have to continue our waiver pickups, and I want to talk about a couple wide receivers quickly, and then we will get into yours. Hey,
I have him on the list.
The Sun God.
Yes.
Is not in the sunniest place in Detroit. They actually play in a dome, so I suppose it doesn't matter if it's sunny or not. But in PPR formats especially, he could just kind of be like a safe option for you. You talk about having those boom bust guys. If you have some of those boom bust guys and you need a safer guy, I feel like this might be the guy. Maybe you don't want to trust him immediately, but the matchups for the rest of the season actually are pretty good. Arizona, Atlanta, Seattle, all games where you expect this team to have to like keep up a little bit. So as 12 targets in the last 2 isn't necessarily the biggest like yards per catch guy, but full point PPR formats, that doesn't really matter. If he's going to get you 8 catches, that's already 8 points. I'm fine with adding him. I'm also fine with Russell Gage.
You are stealing my list right now. Okay.
That's a good thing.
This guy wanted to go first. I knew it. You wanted to see the smart.
Agreements are few and far between on this show. So something that should be celebrated.
Always.
Just a guy that's always kind of involved in the offense. Not a guy that you're getting and saying, oh, this guy's going to be like a lock for my lineup every week. Don't think you're going to find many guys like that at this point in the year, but definitely a guy that I think is worth an ad if you are shallow on wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm with you. One thing I did want to add about Amon-Ra, the Sun God Brown, is the 2 games he's got the 12 targets, the last 2 weeks, DeAndre Swift has been out. So when DeAndre Swift is in, he gets like 4 to 6 targets, which isn't the most helpful thing. So keep an eye on it if you do pick him up to see about Swift's status, because there's a direct correlation with Swift being in and Amon-Ra St. Brown being a nobody versus when Swift is out, Amon-Ra St. God being a god that he is. So just keep an eye out for that, just because there seems to be a direct correlation for those people.
Okay. Any other wide receivers? There are a few more wide receivers that I didn't name, but I will let you steal from my list if you so want to.
Well, you stole 2 out of my 3. So the last one, it's debatable because he's rostered in 50.1. So he could still technically be out there. It's Devante Parker. Plays for a little team down in Miami. It is sunny down in Miami. I checked the weather forecast. They're playing the Jets. I mean, Jets are a bad team. He only has 1 game this year with under 6 targets, and that was against the Giants, where 5 for 5, 62 yards got you double-digit fantasy points. He's an interesting guy for me. If you just needed someone to potentially get you double digits, I like him, and it's against the Jets, so I mean, I kind of really like him.
Agreed. I think Devante Parker is a great pickup if he is available in your leagues. Another wide receiver, KJ Osborne. wasn't necessarily on the same tier as the other guys. I say just because in the recent performances, touchdown has really helped him out. But I still think that he's a guy that should be rostered in more than 26.5% of leagues.
Right. So KJ Osborne is not, he's a guy I like. He's on my team, obviously. But this week we're playing Chicago. It should be a barn burner. Chicago has no offense and it has no defense. So we should run the score up early and often. And Chicago is not the game that I'm looking to see like Minnesota pass catchers to have a very great game. Whereas in week 16 and 17, when they're playing the Rams and they're playing Green Bay, Minnesota's going to have to try to keep up. It's going to be a more pass happy offense then. So he's a guy who I'm kind of looking for then, kind of in the same kind of boat as Rashad Penny, just because of he might not be the great start this week, but in the next week and the following week for your deep playoffs, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I think that could also be a tip added to the playoff thing is just know your team, know what you need as far as do you need somebody for this week or do you need somebody for the future? What are you kind of looking at there? Honorable mention, guys. I think I'm going away from the Giants, guys. We've been on the Sterling Shepard and Kadarius Toney train for a while, but like the quarterback play is just hurting them now, and especially not expecting Daniel Jones back anytime soon.
Correct.
Something that worries me a bit in having invested a lot of time talking about Sterling Shepard and invested some roster spots in him as well.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you.
Him, I would say the other New York players are some guys to look at as far as I would say Jamison Crowder did not have the best day. I still think that he could have a role in this offense. Maybe as like not a guy that you're going to play right away, but a guy to put on your bench. But Braxton Berrios was the guy who had the most catches on that offense. And question is, do you trust Zach Wilson to give you consistent production? I don't know. But maybe as a back end of the bench guy, if you are kind of in need of a safe wide receiver, I would keep an eye out in a deeper league for him. Donovan Peoples-Jones as well. News just came out of all the Browns COVID tests, and Jarvis was on that. So Donovan Peoples-Jones could be a good play in that. He actually had a pretty solid week last week as well.
Yeah, 5 for 7, 90 yards. DPJ is an interesting guy. I just don't. Kareem Hunt's doubtful for the week, so I might have to take a look at him again on Sunday. But just not an offense that I enjoy a wide receiver from.
Agreed.
Because of quarterback play and the fact they run the ball every day.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't make the main list, but definitely someone to at least keep an eye out for, or if you are in a deeper league, maybe consider picking up. Moving on to tight ends. It's kind of the tight end we talk about all year long. Tyler Conklin is right at the top of that. Yep. Adam Thielen still expected to miss. We'll see, but I think he still definitely deserves a spot coming off of a disappointing week. Definitely deserves a spot without Thielen out there, and probably deserves a look at least with Thielen back.
Right. I mean, Tyler Conklin, number one tight end in the league with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook all in. So, I mean, obviously he has the potential to do it. He was my number one tight end. Cole Kmet
still is.
What?
Still is. Your number one tight end, I would say.
Yes, still is my number one tight end. Cole Kmet is the second tight end on the list just because Justin Fields has a hard time throwing the ball more than 5 yards downfield. So what better option to have than the guy who runs 3-yard hitches? Just boom, right there, catch the ball, away he goes. Minnesota is going to have a commanding lead in this game. So, Chicago's going to have to pass to try to get the score to be a little bit more respectable, and Cole Kmet's going to benefit from that. So both those guys, two guys that I like.
You are very confident in Minnesota winning this game.
Very confident.
It's an interesting approach. I don't know. I don't know that I would have the supreme confidence that you have. You
I do.
shouldn't feel good about it, but I mean, 2 weeks ago, crazier things have happened, is what I suppose I'm trying to say.
I mean, what happened 2 weeks ago? What happened 2 weeks ago, Kondo?
Oh, I thought you were looking it up.
No, I was waiting for you to tell me. I just didn't know.
I mean, they lost to a particular opponent who we both love their head coach and the toughness that they fight with, but they had not won a game prior.
I guess I'm confused on who you're talking about.
The Minnesota Vikings. It seems like you're very confident in the Vikings kicking the crap out of the Bears, and you guys lost to the Lions 2 weeks ago.
We lost to the Lions. That doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
I mean, hey, it is what it is. All right.
I'm just saying that it seems a little bit weird that you're so confident in beating the Bears off of that happening.
The Bears are a worse team than the Lions. You heard it here first.
That's a bold take.
Yeah. Record isn't everything in the National Football League.
I'd say it's up there.
No, it's not.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
Defenses and kickers. I actually have a defense as well, but you're probably going to mention them, so I will let you
So I'm just gonna name. I'll do two at each here. Number one, Dolphins. Dolphins playing the Jets. Let's just be real. Sorry, second take extra. Jets are not a good team. Defense should look good against them. Second team is my Jags. They're playing Houston, baby.
Your Jags.
Yeah, I'm gonna start calling it my Jags. If Gardner Minshew, gets a redemption shot next year, gets to come back, lead the team, I feel like that'd be the most like Disney book thing ever. And that's what I'm really rooting for here. But the Jags, they have a great matchup this week, so Jags potential against Houston. So Jags and Dolphins for my defenses.
I've heard that Disney books are actually better than Disney movies.
That's probably true. I can't read, so like I wouldn't.
Fair enough. I suppose in that case you would not agree, but you did cite the Disney books.
Right.
It's interesting that you know the endings of Disney books when you can't read.
I just have people who can read to me, and it just makes it so much easier.
Okay. Yeah. Third party reading.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Chargers are another name that should be in that mix as well. Chargers are kind of around that 50-point range. I do like the Dolphins pick a lot as well.
Thank you.
Not just because they played the Jets this week. I'd say that's the most appealing thing, but they also play New Orleans next week. I think this New Orleans offense has looked a little bit better, but also what kind of like tests have we really seen? Like, I suppose they played Dallas. I don't think the Dallas defense is like unreal. So and what did they do? They turned the ball over a ton in that game too. So like there was
4 interceptions
we had playing the Saints.
Right. I mean, New Orleans threw the ball 4 times to the other team. So
yeah. So I am with you as far as the Dolphins go. And then they played the Titans in week 17. And I don't think the Titans are the most incredible on offense right now. I think they're still trying to work stuff out.
Right. Dolphins have, I think, the best schedule for teams that are under 50% rostered for their defenses for the next 3 games. I mean, I'm not scared of New Orleans, and that would be the only one that I'm sort of worried about. They just have great next couple weeks. I would say Jags are close, but they played New England week 17, which is
And it's just how confident do you actually feel? Like, I think the Dolphins are a good defense. I don't know that I feel that way necessarily about the Jaguars.
Yeah, Dolphins are looking better. I'm not sure how good their defense actually is, but Jags I think the Dolphins offense kind of helps them a little bit. When you have Myles Gaskins who can just carry any team ever.
Yeah, I mean, the most points the Dolphins have allowed since week 9 is 17 to the Jets. Every other game has been 10 or less. So pretty impressive there. I do like the Chargers, not necessarily this week. So I guess it depends on what you need. I think another thing I would say for the playoffs is stacking defenses, which I talked about this earlier in the season as well. I'm a big fan of holding 2 defenses and just saying what schedule plays. For instance, I have the Niners and the Chargers right now in one league, and I have the Niners playing Atlanta this week, and then the Chargers have a very good 2-game stretch following this week as they play Houston and then Denver. So I kind of like the Chargers as an ad that, especially next week, can get you a win. And I'm not even going to play the Chargers against the Broncos because I also have the Cardinals, or not the Cardinals, excuse me, the Niners to face Houston in week 17. So I think stacking defenses is a very good idea. And I think the Chargers could be a key piece of that.
With you.
Kickers.
Do you have any kickers, Condo?
I do not have any kickers. I apologize.
Okay. Well, I got 2. One for me, one for you. Since I said me first, I'll take the lesser of the 2. I'll go with
it's very
Ryan's. Thank you. I'll go with Ryan Suckup, Tampa Bay's kicker. They're playing New Orleans this week. So I think that they're going to be able to march down the field quite a bit. Tampa Bay just has an explosive offense. New Orleans might get lucky a couple of times, get a couple stops on the Bucs, and a couple chip shot field goals could be in the future for Suckup. So potential on him. Yours, Condo, is a guy right underneath him, is Jason Sanders, plays for Miami. They're playing the Jets. Sort of similar situation. I just could see Miami, I think, is a superior offense and will march down the field, score a bunch, so some extra points. And I think that they might get stopped on a couple of drives and resulting in a couple of chip shot field goals. So both those guys this week are the kickers I'm looking forward to.
That is our waiver discussion. So good luck to you all in waivers. The last thing we want to cover today is Circle Trust.
Trust is
talked
important.
about it. Trust, one of the toughest things to gain in life. We said it's money, trust,
hair.
I suppose hair.
A 6-pack.
6-pack, I would say.
An extra couple inches.
In any context, I suppose, yes.
Yeah.
Learning
how to cook.
Cooking. Anything else that we'd like to add to things that are just hard to gain? I would say
the ability to
for a skinnier, someone who just has a high metabolism, you could say weight.
I mean, all you really need to do, Condos, is eat a extra large meat lovers pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and have a protein.
As we have different pizza tastes.
Right. That's why I said meat lovers, because I think we both agreed on meat lovers.
No.
And you should if you're trying to put on the muscle, like the muscle mass, try and get that weight. You need protein. You don't want veggies because, if you look, just look at people who eat salads versus people who eat protein.
I don't know. I would need some physical examples, but
yeah.
So anyway, trust, a very tough thing to gain. And once you lose it, it can take a while to gain it back. And I don't know if you know this, but we're in playoff time. There's not much time left to gain that trust back. So here are a few guys that I want to throw at you to see where they are in the circle of trust. Have they worked their way out of the circle of trust? Are they in the circle of trust? Are they on the precipice, either one way or the other? And I want to start off with James Robinson. James Robinson, maybe not through any fault of his own. He's actually projected for 14 points this week. He does play Houston in a great matchup. Has great matchups in the playoffs. So he plays the Jets next week. And things have not looked great for James Robinson in the last 2 weeks. 8 carries for 24 yards against the Rams, 1 catch for 11 yards, 2.5 fantasy points. And then last week, 6 carries for 4 yards, no touchdowns. That is 0.4 fantasy points. Probably big contribution to a lot of people who didn't make the playoffs. But if you did make the playoffs with James Robinson, where is he on your circle of trust? And a lot of this ties into like Urban Meyer, who a lot of people have a lot of problems with Urban Meyer, we'll say.
Maybe.
But it still unfortunately affects James Robinson and affects fantasy managers who have him. So
I have trust in James Robinson. He was a guy I was actively trying to get before the trade deadline in a couple of leagues. If you go back all the way to week 3, all the way back to week 3,
all the way,
which is a long time ago because we're about to head into week 15. So he has 7 weeks in which he got you double-digit fantasy points and only 3 weeks where he got you under 10 fantasy points. So he's a guy almost 2-to-1, over 2-to-1 odds to get you over double-digit fantasy points. He's playing Houston and the Jets. So my trust goes up just because I think the Jags, it's not really his fault. If you look at Trevor Lawrence, I believe he has like 1 touchdown in the past like 6 weeks or something like that. So it's not helping, James Robinson any when your quarterback legitimately is not throwing the ball to
we knew this offense wasn't going to be great too.
Right, but James Robinson was able to perform earlier on in the year when Trevor was at least putting up a couple of touchdowns. Like, I mean, since week 9, he has 1 touchdown. It doesn't lead to good offenses. He has 2 games above 200 yards since week 9. It's really hard to be an efficient team, much less a running back, when 1, your coach is calling plays for the pass, and then 2, when the pass is just not going anywhere, it makes it really tough. So I feel like in a game against Houston and the Jets here, they might be like, hey, we have a chance to just legitimately win this game on the ground. Let's just take this win, get back to like some fundamentals. And so my trust in James Robinson is still there. Trust in Trevor Lawrence and the pass catchers is not there, though.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it would be, if it was just James Robinson, I would obviously trust it. But I don't know that it's not that I don't. James Robinson might be in my circle of trust. But in the context of the other 5 letters that are on the end of this, where he is the running back for Jacksonville, and maybe just the last 3 letters at the end of this, which is just Jacksonville. I don't know. I think I do. I think he's like barely in. Mm-hmm. But if it wasn't as attractive of a matchup, I would say no. It just is kind of as good as it gets. We saw how that went last week for Rashad Penny. And if Rashad Penny can do something, I often have the feeling that James Robinson could. For instance, if Rashad Penny skipped a rock and it skipped 3 times across the water, I would say James Robinson could probably also get that rock to skip 3 times across the water. And that's not a knock on Rashad Penny. That's just in the built-up trust that I have for James Robinson.
Okay.
So
what is your personal record for most skips from a thrown rock?
I think I might have like 5. I'm not very talented at that. That is not one of my strong suits. I have a very select bit of skills.
I'm pretty talented. Some would consider me actually to be the best in the world.
Wow.
I have a record of 2. So, I don't want to brag, but, I'm pretty good.
That's fair. Some say the less you get is actually the more talent. Mm-hmm. And in that case, you would be amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, but James Robinson, I can't say that I would sit him because I can't. I'll be very interested to see where he sits on my rankings when we have our Sunday show.
Right.
But I'm guaranteed that he will be in my top 20 for sure. Probably in my top 15. So I can't say that I don't trust him.
Right. I trust James Robinson. I have very little trust in Trevor Lawrence, which kind of negatively impacts James Robinson.
But our trust for Urban Meyer has never been higher.
That's true. That's true.
Let's talk about someone we already talked about a bit, but
Baby.
Dante Foreman. We already promised that he was going to come back into the fold.
We did.
I know this is one that we're going to disagree on, and
It's okay.
I am a bit more worried about it. I still say that he's kind of on the outside. I would say like flex territory, because there's so many cooks in the kitchen there. I just am worried about that split. It does look like he is the most effective guy at the moment, but we've seen that change over the last like few weeks of who's been the guy, like who's been the most efficient. He's been the most consistently decent, but the usage of the other guys concerns me a bit to the point of I don't necessarily want to start him. Like he had a solid week that was pretty like saved by a touchdown in against Jacksonville. And I don't think the schedule gets much easier. Pittsburgh hasn't been great against the run. San Fran, Miami, Houston in week 18 if you play that, but it doesn't get much easier than Jacksonville, and like I'm not feeling great about putting him in my lineup.
So he's a must-start flex for me. But I mean that as in, I know Kondo personally has like 4 or 5 top 20 running backs on one of your rosters. You have Pollard, Zeke, Eckler,
JT,
and I believe you have another one somewhere, right? Do you have 4 or 5?
I have just handcuffs beyond that, I think.
Right. So, but you have
Hilliard.
All right, so 4 because Hilliard's not on my top 20 here. But you have 4, but that's one team with 4 starting caliber running backs for your team. So he is a guy who's going to be positioned at like a flex position, whereas he's going to be like 25 to 30 for me. But he's a start guy for me. He's not a guy who, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you have a lot of running backs on your team, whereas other people are going to have.
Yeah,
like,
I get you.
Right. So he's a guy who's going to be ranked as a flex, but he's a guy I think you have to start just because he had the least amount of snaps given to him, but he had the most impact for his team. And you're right, like the competition does not get easier moving forward. But the fact that like he's able to be the most efficient running back on that roster who's healthy right now, especially over Hilliard and McNichols, is definitely encouraging to me. And that's just why I like him, he's a guy who I'm going to feel comfortable starting if I have a guy on bye or if I have a guy out because of COVID or something like that. I'm okay with starting him this week. So my trust is in Foreman, but sort of similar to the Robinson thing. It's more the team that's a little scary to me just because, Julio's back, which is great for everyone because you watch Julio Jones be an animal out there. But Hilliard and McNichols were out there also too, which kind of takes away a little bit. So, but there's one thing we've kind of learned from the Tennessee backfield and Tennessee organization since Derrick Henry going down is they have literally no idea how to like consistently make a game plan, and it changes every single week with who's getting the ball, how many times they're going to be out there. I mean, it's so like odd how they're doing it, which is smart but so hard for fantasy managers. But I just have a weird trust for Foreman. I also like Hilliard just because Hilliard does have the passing receiving upside. If the game gets out of hand in the opposite favor of Tennessee, I could see Hilliard getting some love thrown his way too. So I have trust in Foreman though.
Fair enough. One that we will agree on before there's one that I think we will also unfortunately agree on, but this one's a little bit more fortunate. Amari Cooper, wide receiver from Dallas Cowboys, had a good week last week. 16.1, 5 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown, 7 targets. I'm not sure he's in the circle of trust, though.
No, he's not. I mean, if this wasn't PPR, he would have got you underneath 10 points if we didn't get that touchdown for you. I mean, I don't love it. But again, they're playing the Giants, Washington, and then Arizona. So
Washington defense has been a little bit better, though.
As of late, they've been a little bit better, but their offense just hasn't been like terrific. It ain't been humming. Like the Dallas offense is one of the better offenses in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So my trust isn't all the way there in Amari. No fault of his own. I think Amari Cooper is a great wide receiver. Just I don't have all the trust and love for Amari right now.
Yeah, I think he's kind of one of the guys we talked about earlier as far as boom bust is okay if you can support it.
Right.
If you have the guys around you that are safe, I don't think that he's an awful play. But last week I had him as, and this might say more about me than Amari Cooper, but I had him as my 30th wide receiver. I think he'll go up a little bit just with some of the guys dealing with injuries right now and some of the guys who have struggled of late. I think there's a lot of wide receivers we could do this for, whether that be like Terry McLaurin, Van Jefferson, Mooney, even like Julio. There's a lot of guys that we could do this for. But another guy that I'm kind of interested to see where he comes in on my rankings this week, because it's just the boom bust thing with Amari Cooper that we've always had with him. It's not much different than in years past, other than CeeDee Lamb's there, obviously.
Right.
Last one. Lamar Jackson did sprain his ankle. I guess it is to be determined whether he is going to be healthy enough to play. But if he is healthy enough to play, I don't know that you really have the option to sit him. But I also think that I think that's why you'd be like right barely in the circle of trust for me. I love Lamar. But as a fantasy quarterback, you've seen the ups and downs from him this year.
Right.
And I don't think quarterback is the position where you want to see those ups and downs. I think that's a position where you like to have a little bit more of that safety. And I'm a little bit worried. Now, some of these opponents are, I suppose, good opponents for having to score against. Green Bay, Cincinnati, the Rams, and then Pittsburgh to end off the year if you play in Week 18.
Right.
But low ankle sprain obviously should affect his ability to run, at least in the short term, if he is to play this week against Green Bay. And it's just been pretty inconsistent. Like, it's been since week 9 that he's had a week over 20 points, over 18 points even. And he's only had 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks over 20 points. Now, he's gotten close to that several times, but that lack of consistency scares me. You're probably playing Lamar because I don't know. We already talked about
the depth
quarterbacks that are out there to stream, but like, it's not a position that I feel great about right now. And we kind of talked about that for a while, about just the inconsistency that comes with Lamar as your fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lamar gets a lot of talent from his legs. And if he has an ankle sprain, which is going to limit his mobility, we're not going to see great productivity out of him. Just is what it is. So, yeah, my circle of trust is low on Lamar right now until he clears the ankle sprain.
Yeah.
Kind of, you're going to have to filibuster for a minute here. I have to go handle some business.
Oh, boy. Well, we are going to take questions, so this is probably the best time to do that. 9:49. We are having a great morning. I suppose we already had a great morning, depending on the time zone that we're in. We are on the East Coast, so my morning was solid. I discovered a new breakfast idea that I'm not sure if you guys want to hear about, but I'll say it anyway. I put buffalo chicken dip in my scrambled eggs. Oh my goodness. If you think I'm going back to enjoying normal scrambled eggs, you are crazy. I had somebody say, I don't like the idea of chicken with eggs. It's literally the same thing. I don't understand how you could not like that combination. If you're starting to lock it, you are okay. Language, and we'll get burned. I don't know. I mean, like, I had to lock it as my wide receiver 10 last week, and happy playoffs. Second take extra. Hope you are in the playoffs in the majority of your leagues. And yeah, like I had Lockett as wide receiver 10. He didn't really disappoint there. And I just don't know who else you're putting ahead of him. Like there's not a ton of guys that I can see hopping ahead of him where he would be even outside of the top 15 at this point. Maybe you can put Jamar Chase ahead of him, Renfro, but I don't see many names that were behind him that are probably going to leap him, at least for this upcoming week. The guy that I am playing had the Finns defense week 13 and dropped them, and I got them, and this week I play him. That's the ultimate revenge game. I think you have to put the Dolphins defense out there just to get their revenge. They also played the Jets. So Hooper and Landry on COVID protocol. We did see that. We'll just pay attention to the updates throughout the week, but do you think that could set up for a DPJ game if they were to miss time? Penny stash, definitely. Would say true. That he is one of the top waiver guys out there.
Yeah.
Madison on COVID. Hopefully not RIP. We hope that everyone is safe.
Yeah, hope everyone lives. Hopefully it's a false positive. I mean, that's been popping up a lot. So, best of luck.
Yeah. But I think he's still definitely someone that you should add to your benches if he's out there.
Right. He should.
Okay. Also, we had a decent week, and I did say after the show, I did notice like 20 points is a lot to say that anybody's going to average. Alvin Kamara is probably the guy to like bet that on, but we got off to a solid start as far as.
Right. I mean, they played the Jets. I mean, it is what it is.
But we needed, 20 points for a guy that was going to get dropped. I don't want to go out on a limb here, but neither Rex Burkhead nor Dante Foreman got that last week.
No, they didn't.
And they together actually didn't even add up.
Hey, I don't know why you have to throw Sexy Rexy, underneath the bus there.
Yeah, if he is on waivers,
don't pick him up.
I think he ought to. I would say
did drop AK-47.
It's a tough decision. But I would say you probably should make that move.
So people are listening to me and drafting AK-4. You're welcome for listening to me, and this is going to help your team moving forward. You're welcome.
Okay. Penny goes off and you make the championship. Your opponent will get, again, language, destroyed. I don't know. I'm still kind of like, I want to see him prove it a little bit more. He did have a good game against the Texans, and we've never really seen him have this lead role. Like I'm fine with picking him up, but I don't know that I'm instilling all my confidence in him right away. I'm not sure that he's in the circle of trust.
No, Penny's not in the circle of trust yet. You have to earn the trust. Don't just give it out.
Minnesota or Titans defense. I had this call. I'm going Titans.
I'm going Minnesota. They're playing a word. Who's Titans playing?
Titans play Pittsburgh? No, not Pittsburgh.
Tennessee is playing Pittsburgh.
Okay. I'm taking the Titans.
Pittsburgh's offense is much better than Chicago's offense, whereas Minnesota's defense is comparable to the Titans' defense. So give me the team that's going to be putting up less points and holding their opponent to less points. Give me Minnesota's defense because, as I said earlier, Chicago is not that guy.
I actually have this decision to make in one of my leagues for a playoff matchup, and I'm going Titans. I think the Titans are a little bit better defensively. Like I just that is going off of no information, but I just have a little bit more trust in them defensively. And I don't know that I think the Bears are I do think the Bears are the worst offense, but divisional games can always get a little bit messy, and that scares me off of it a bit. So I'm leaning with I'm leaning with the Titans here.
I'm just going to look something up just for you real quick, Kondo, before you make any rash decisions here.
Okay.
Really just affect your team negatively.
We don't want that.
Yeah, so Tennessee, I knew it, has more weeks and negative fantasy points than Minnesota does. So, I don't want to see you lose your playoff matchup just because you have a personal vendetta against, me being happy and me being right on a double.
I always want you to be happy, Tony.
Well, you don't want me to be happy because I want you to win. And if you play the Tennessee's, defense over Minnesota's, you're not going to win. So
Tennessee is 12th,
18.
ranked 12th as far as yards per game allowed, 12th least. Minnesota is 29th. I get that doesn't contribute to everything. Tennessee has also allowed the second least yards per game over the last 3 games. So defense is actually looking pretty decent of late. So I'm a little bit more in favor of the Titans for that regard, I suppose. Not that really factored in until I looked it up. But
last 3 games was New England a bye week, and then Jacksonville.
No, it's the last 3 games, not the last
Houston,
3 weeks.
So Houston, New England, and then Jacksonville. Jacksonville throwing 4 interceptions and scoring 0 points because of terrible quarterback play.
Fair enough. Hey, they did their job. Yeah, I mean, that's not something that went too much into my thing before that, but yeah, that even if you don't want to go off the last 3 weeks, 12 to 29 is a pretty decent discrepancy that has me leaning the Titans. Thoughts on Detroit urban survival training?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think everyone should go take a class with that guy. He really knows what he's talking about. I mean, it's got me at a
Odell celebration.
The self-revive?
No, the one he had one last night of the video.
No, I missed it. Wow.
Yeah,
what did he do? Did he do the circle one? The circle one's my favorite. That always gets me.
I don't remember exactly which one it was, but I also can't show it because
we don't have the rights to advertise for that guy.
But yeah, I mean, just saving people one person at a time, and we appreciate his service.
Great man. Everyone should go, look him up.
Agreed. Whew. That is it for our show today. Thank you all for watching. We will be back on Sunday for our Start Sit show. That's tough to say. That can get dangerous.
What do you mean? Wait, what can you
Start Sit show? There's a word that has a sh, and there's sit right next to each other.
Right.
And one of those times I'm going to use one of 9 or 49's naughty words, and I don't want to say that on here. I want to keep it clean for the kids. I'm not trying to be a
I think we could have a segment called that, though. I think the segment would be very, very helpful to everyone.
I think it honestly might make a little bit more sense for our actual show to call it the Start
Shit Show.
I didn't say it, but
I said it.
I think that's probably the better name.
9 or 49.
Especially going off of last week. I would like to get before we go, your thoughts on how last week went, because it was kind of a Start expletive show.
Our Sunday show?
Yeah. There was just
enjoyed
a
it.
lot of chaos. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot
It
of
was a
chaos.
lot of fun, and I think it was helpful. I mean, I know 2 people who changed their lineups because of something we said, and I was very happy for that. I said, "Hey, listen, glad to help. Hopefully you win. Give me some money if you do."
I don't wanna ask if it worked out because I'm too scared.
Um, for one of them, they won their week. The other
There we
person
go.
the other person hasn't told me, so I'm assuming they lost because otherwise I would have got a thank you.
Mhm. Fair enough.
Thank you. Thank you.
But hey, 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
I don't know what these other comments on Facebook are or Twitter. What is
Oh,
that? YouTube? I don't know. Did you ask where people went to college?
I think that's, some kind of maybe, like, dark web tag that I don't wanna know about. Like, I just ignore them because I assumed it's something that I shouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm too dumb. I mean, if someone does know what it means, feel free to tell me.
Is that
But
some kind of Bitcoin?
maybe that's the YouTubes. That's how we get on YouTubes. I don't
I don't
know.
know, but
Me
these
either.
names seem
Penelope.
very fake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't trust anyone who doesn't have a picture in their name. So 9 or 49, get on it. All right.
Dropped Tony many weeks ago. That is probably a smarter decision than we would have made. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the Giants are not in the best of places right now. I
They're not in a good place at all.
don't feel great about the Sterling Shepard hopes. I would have felt fine about it if Daniel Jones was still playing, but now it's kind of sad. But that is it for us. Thank you all for watching. We will be back on Sunday for the Start Sit show
Start,
or
sit, show.
the Start Expletive show, however you want to look at it. And we will see you all then.
See y'all.